Welcome to episode 30 of Neo Guitars Without Music. Today we've got a very special guest, apart from Nick Granville in Wellington, Mr. Brett Adams, all the way from West Auckland.
Howdy.
Brett's a very in-demand session guitar player. Apart from his own project, he's got a band called the Bads with his partner Dianne. And he just released an album, a solo album.
The instrumental one is called Black Clouds in Stereo.
That was an awesome album. I really enjoyed listening to it when that came out.
Thank you.
So, welcome, Brett. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got a bit late because we spent some time playing around with, all the gear in this room.
So many great guitars.
Warren's got all the toys, so you might as well play around with all that stuff that he's got there, those beautiful amps and the rest of it. So yeah, I've been following your playing for a long time, Brett. I think you sound great, and I've heard a few of your recordings and different things, and of course know the stuff with Tami Nielson and people like that. Tell me, where did you grow up? Did I hear a bit of an Australian accent a minute ago?
No, sorry.
Was that an Auckland accent?
I grew up very close to where I am now, actually, and I'm only a couple of miles from my house, probably. But I grew up in West Auckland. I lived in London for 14 years, so I missed all the 90s. I was in England during the 90s. Went over in 1988 with the band I was in. They were called the Mockers. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the Mockers.
Absolutely,
a pop band.
I remember you from the Mockers too. Yeah.
Oh right, okay. So I went over in '88. Spent 14 years in England, and that's when I basically started the band, the Bads, with my partner Dianne. We were called something different then, but yeah, we were called the Julie Dolphin then. Anyway, West Auckland, 14 years in England. And I'm back in New Zealand, Auckland, Westie again.
And I bet going to London at that time would have been a really good musical thing, right? Like the development and all the rest of it, and you're playing. And I lived in London for a year and a half, or kind of. We travelled around a lot, but we were based in South London. But the music scene there was just really happening even then. And I imagine, back then there would have been a lot more happening.
Yeah, it was. It was hard though. We went over with the Mockers, and it was a case of starting again completely. The success we had in New Zealand didn't matter. And with pop bands like that, things move so fast, and within a couple of years, you sort of got to reinvent yourself or something. But that lasted 2 years, and basically some of the band had had enough and came home again. But I ended up staying on and working as all sorts of jobs, working in bars and things like that, and cycle courier. It was tough.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but so I wasn't playing. I never did any sessions for anyone, or anything like that. I was just in a band, and then I met Dianne Swann, who I'd known in New Zealand and had played in the Cat's Way a couple of times. I did the first tour with them, so I knew her from that, and her band Everything That Flies, which were a great band too. And we started writing songs together, and she ended up staying there, and that turned into 14 years. But there were some, We came back, but there were some good moments there. We put out 2 records, but one took years to come out. But the first one got a bit of attention from Melody Maker and NME and things like that, and we got Single of the Week on XFM, and we did some good gigs. And Radiohead liked us. They happened to see us in a place in Oxford, and it was Ed, the guitarist, saw us, and then he said, I'm going to bring the whole band down next time you play, and true to his word, he did, and we ended up being their support band on the Benz tour. So that there's some good moments like that.
And were you always playing as a session guitar with other people, or then that just took off on its own? Not
in England. That happened here, but in England I occasionally got asked to play something if someone wanted something weird. They used to ask me, but not very often. And no, that was when I got back here. Wayne Bell, do you know Wayne Bell, the drummer Wayne Bell? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he got me for a session, and then I got recommended, and very quickly I had basically an audition with Tim Finn, who was so that was pretty thrilling, and that went well, and then I started. That's when it started. I started doing sessions with people. So I've been playing with Tim Finn for, I think it's about 18, 19 years now.
Wow.
I've never really thought of myself as a session guitarist. I just play with the people who want to
let me
do what I do.
Because I see these great gigs, and I'm like, oh, who's on guitar? Oh, it's Brett.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you're keeping busy, man. You've got a lot of stuff on. I see it's these Led Zeppelin tours and all kinds of stuff like this, right? And,
well, that's
there's
that's when I'm really at home. That sort of stuff. Westy again, Led Zeppelin.
Because it must be fun just playing that stuff in a professional capacity with stuff that you grew up playing and grew up learning.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you got back to New Zealand, how did you find coming back here with things? Obviously it's very different, probably. Although some things are probably exactly the same, right? And did you walk back into certain gigs or... because 14 years is quite a long time. I was only away for a year and a half.
No,
so.
I apart from, that, as I mentioned before, someone I knew, Wayne Bell, that was how I got a foot into doing something, to getting used, recording with other people. It had all completely changed. 14 years, it's a long time to be away, and it was I basically missed the 90s, so it was very different, and I didn't know many people anymore.
What's that guitar you're holding there too? Sorry, because this is a guitar nerd channel.
I was just comparing it to Warren's amazing, they're Eric Johnson, aren't they? Stratocasters, and it did okay. I was hoping I wasn't going to be disappointed, but they're amazing. Those black Strats he's got there. This is called an original 60s, and so it's an American, based on a 65 and a 60, I think, around that era. Not exactly.
It's a 65. Yeah. It's got that logo.
There you go. You know more than me.
Yeah, it's basically like a vintage reissue, but a slightly flatter fretboard, which is awesome. So you don't have to deal with the 7.25.
Because I think if you have the Les Paul thing, that's what I've seen you playing.
He's got that here as well.
Got my favourite guitar, probably my black Les Paul here as well. But
and you got plenty of work on now. You're keeping busy. The Auckland scene's a little different than the Wellington scene, from what I see in terms of doing sessions and stuff, right?
Right at the moment, I've got a session next week, for some, I think it's Minecraft, something. It's a recording session, and then a couple of...
Oh, Stephen, my wife sang on that soundtrack as well.
Oh, really?
They just did that with an orchestra down here. She was part of the choir that sung on it, and I think Stephen Gallagher's involved in that, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know if you know Stevie G.
I haven't met him either. I know of him, but I haven't met him. So it's it's gone quiet right now, but after that, I'm going to go on a little holiday, and then I got some festivals coming up, playing with the Exponents, who I was never in the Exponents, but recently have been touring with them when they get together and tour, which isn't that often, maybe once every 6 or 7 years or something. And I got also a couple of festivals with the Dudes. I was not in the Dudes also. That's Dave Dobbin was in the Dudes, but he's living with Parkinson's, so he just wants to put his energies into his own thing, and but he's happy for them to carry on, and they want to play. So
there's some great guitar parts in those songs.
Yeah, and I love playing Dave's parts. He's such a melodic guitar player. And I've done one gig with the Dudes at the Power Station probably about 3 or 4 months ago now, and it was really good fun.
Yeah, it's amazing, those songs, they come on radio quite often, and it's amazing how they still hold up. After. Because I'm always messaging Ricky and asking who played that part.
Yeah, they him and Ian, Dave and Ian, there's great guitar interplay going on. With clean and dirty sounds, and really I love those parts, real melodic, concise little parts.
It's kind of funny how over here it's part of the fabric, but if you don't live here you won't just know about it. And there's so much great music in this country like that. Unless you're here and part of the music scene, it'll just slip you by.
I mean, Dave Dobbin's the perfect example, right? Massively big in New Zealand, a household name, and maybe a patch of people in the UK might know him, expats and stuff like that, but outside of that, and Australia, but outside of that, not really known at all. And I guess that's what you probably found with the Mockers when you got over there was, you can have a degree of success in New Zealand, but it doesn't really necessarily always translate to abroad.
No. As Exponents as well, huge in New Zealand, but no one in Australia knows them. You come over here, we hear them on the radio, but...
Yeah, I mean, when I was in India, the only New Zealand bands I knew were Crowded House, obviously, and Super Groove, because they came to Bombay to do some gigging.
Really?
Yeah.
Had you heard of Split Ends?
No, I found Split Ends by researching Crowded House and finding out where these guys came from, because I was a huge fan when that when that album came. I think it was Woodface, right?
Yeah.
So then I did a bit of, digging around, and then I got into, split ends. And
it's funny, isn't it? There's that divide, isn't it? Like, and this is one thing I've grappled with a lot in my mind is, you can do a whole lot of work in this country, but to take it to the next level, it's so expensive to fly over and go and do gigs and keep coming back. So you can't really do that. The only way for it to really work is to leave New Zealand and try and, which is what you did, Brett. You left, you went, you try to make it over there for whatever reason. And that seems to be the path, right? Because you can't, I wonder if it is even possible to do it from here and make without leaving. I've never really seen anybody do that.
Well,
like on a global kind of thing.
Yeah,
and the Finn brothers did. They left, right? They left to, and Australia claimed them as their own, didn't they?
Yeah. And especially back then too. I mean, it's a little bit different now. Like you've got much more chance of getting noticed worldwide.
Yeah.
Not that's not easy, but now compared to then, you just absolutely had to fly over there and live there. To England.
There's another great band called Unknown Mortal Orchestra. I think they used to be from here, now they're in the States as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they from New Zealand?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
Oh,
great band.
Oh,
and
I knew the name, and I've heard some of their music. I didn't know they were Kiwis.
Aldous Harding's another name, but I guess but she's again spends most of her time touring Europe and stuff like that. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's such a great country and like such amazing talent that I just hope that people who watch this, from different parts of the world can start just like, oh, who's that, and listen a bit more.
It's interesting too. I kind of think if there was more, Creative New Zealand or some of these places like that would help open up the international routes for people, it'd probably change the whole game. Although maybe it's a different world now with internet and stuff, right? Like you said, and maybe that's where we're going to see more Kiwis kind of branch out, because you're right, there's some very talented people here, insanely talented people.
Yeah, just per capita, the amount of great musicians I've met in this place is more than any other place I've been to.
Yeah, at one stage, really? Back in the early 80s, I think, there was half of the music that was popular in Australia, they were Kiwis. I mean, Dragon, Split Ends, Sharon O'Neill, there were more, I just can't remember right now, but they,
Yeah, and they're famous for claiming them as their own.
Yeah.
John Stevens, Mark Williams, people like that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
interesting.
Keith Urban, while you're at it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He's from up north, isn't he?
That's
from
right.
Fangry,
Yeah. When I was in London, I did this gig, and it was a wedding gig, and I got invited into this group where that was how you ended up getting a lot of gigs. They'd say, wedding next week, who can do it? And if they knew you were in there, they knew you could play, right? And I ended up on this random band of people I'd never met before, and I was talking to the bass player, and here's this little short dude, and he said, "Oh, you're a Kiwi, aren't you?" And I was like, because usually the first thing is, you're an Australian. Mm-hmm. And he said, do you know my friends, Neil and Tim Finn? And I go, what? I said, I don't know them, but everybody knows who they are. He said, I played on all their records and all this kind of stuff. And we did this wedding gig, and it was fine. And I got home that night, and I looked up this guy. I thought, who the hell is this guy, And it was like Dr. John albums and Tina Turner tours and Tina Turner albums and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, wow.
I've got a question about your rig. Now, when you do those come together shows, you've got a huge different material to cover. Do you tend to go with the same rig, or do you pick the rig for the material you're playing?
We pick it. And just recently, we always used to, we did Neil Young, we did Tom Petty, Dire Straits, and for those I would hire a Fender Deluxe or two, maybe.
Tweed Deluxe or something. Yeah.
For the Neil Young one, I used a Fender Bassman,
okay,
which was awesome. A bit loud though. You're really dealing with, sound man's nightmare.
Do you get to turn up a bit on the stages?
I do, but I turn it up quite a bit. But I've also, for the Neil Young one, I had a pedal made by Love pedal called Layluway, I think it's called, and that's a
like
really good
Tweed Deluxe
Neil Young tone. So I had a Fender, Bassman with the pedal as well. So
you tend to set the amp a bit on the verge of breakup.
Just on the verge, and
hammer it with the pedal.
Yeah, and just recently doing the Led Zepp ones, we hired, we used two Marshall amps from that owned by Ollie Harmer and Joel Mulholland at the Lab, and Joel's the other guitarist in the band, so we use those JCM 800, I think it was. Is it the 1987? One is a 50, one's a 100 watt.
The 87 is the 50 and the 59.
It was fantastic for the Led Zeppelin thing. And again, have it just I know they can sound amazing as you turn them right up.
Yeah.
But just on the break, just on the verge of breakup. And for some reason, using a 4x12 wasn't as nightmarishly loud as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's
just
the opposite of what people think, isn't it?
Yeah, because a single 12 can be quite abrasive and quite in your face and very directional.
Yeah.
For some reason, the cab can just spread it out a bit. Okay, if you're right in front of it, it hits you pretty hard. But it's a wider sort of. It is louder, but it wasn't a problem. So and I just love playing through that. So I bought a JCM 800 straight after that. Again, I've owned one in the past, but now I have it, and Mesa cab as well. I just wanted 2 12s, not a 4x12 for travel purposes, really.
But you do prefer the four-hole ones, which are actually the non-master.
Yeah, I like the sound of those. But
Yeah.
I did have Ollie put a master volume in for me at the back.
Right.
You said it's a post-phase
Post
something
phase
or
about
other.
a master volume.
I don't
yeah.
know what that means really, but it enables me to have it, breaking up quite nicely and a reasonable volume. In fact, I can even, like we are in here, play it at home.
Oh yeah.
Dirty and cooking, but nearly sounding as good,
Yeah.
but right down. So yeah, we try and get appropriate amps and pedals and for these shows.
And do you just run all your effects into the front of the amp, or
Yeah, I've never used the
loop or anything?
Never
like
done that, but it would. I mean, if I turned the Marshall up a bit, but got it more dirty, that would probably be. But it doesn't have it. So how did someone like Eddie Van Halen? How did he was cranking at 100
So
watt,
he would
going straight in.
He would load down the amp with a load box or some load resistor thing. Then they would take a line out of that, run it through the effects, and then reamp it with like a huge H&H.
So is that essentially like an effects loop? So he's not going
Kind
straight
of.
into the front of it because it would
No,
get,
he's going. The amp becomes like a distortion box.
Okay,
So you
right.
crank the amp up.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
cooking. Then you
Yeah.
take a line out from the speaker out.
Yeah.
Run that line out into all your effects.
Right.
And then run that into a power amp. And then later on, he started running that center cab dry and 2 wet cabs on the out.
So that's going to be different than going straight
Into the amp.
Yeah, which is going to get messy.
The
right,
whole
with
point
delay.
is to put all your delay and reverb after the power amp
Yeah,
distortion.
Yeah. Cool.
Interesting point you make about the 412s. I've had that experience as well, where you hear yourself better, so you actually need less volume. I remember turning up with 2 amps to a gig one time. I took my Bassman, which is back there, and my little Deluxe, and ran them both. And I walked in, and the sound guy was like, "What are you doing? Stop!" And I was like, "No. It actually means I'll be quieter because I'll hear it better." And he came after the first tune. He comes over and he goes, "Yeah, I kind of get what you mean now."
Yeah,
but they
wider.
do that. Spread sounds
Yeah.
in a different kind of way. That's just really appealing, isn't it?
I did that with the Exponents too. 2 Fender amps out of my stereo, out of my delay and chorus as well. But yeah, very pleasing, wide sound and not too loud.
Do you prefer the angled cabs or the straight ones?
I like the angled ones with, like your one here,
Yeah.
angled with, what are they called, greenbacks, 4
Yeah.
greenbacks. That's the sound I like. Yeah.
Right. That's a bit sweeter sounding than the traditional
Yeah.
75s.
But for live, we couldn't hire those. We had to use they were fine. But
Yeah.
I at the lab for rehearsal, I was using the greenbacks.
You notice the difference, I think,
Hell yeah.
once you
Such a good
get
sound,
get it up a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, those cabs can be like the stock ones. They sound good in like a dark room,
Right,
where
okay,
the room's kind of like taking all that top end off.
Yeah.
Then that extra sizzle kind of works in your.
Most rooms aren't that way, mate.
Yeah.
Most rooms are bright, too bright. And it's good when you get
And
a
do you
dead.
what do you take to sessions when you go to a session? Do you
try and
take the Marshall now, or
No,
what-
I've
what-
never taken that. I usually just take my Fender Supersonic. That's like a handy amp for sessions.
the 22
Or-
watt one.
Yeah, 20 watt. Or often where I go, there's if it's Roundhead or something like that, there's
They've got
all
the
those
best
amps
of
there. Yeah.
amps over there.
Yeah.
And same with the lab as well. They've got a great
Yeah,
selection
yeah.
of old Marshalls and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting in the studios here in Wellington is almost none of them have amps. If they, there's one studio I go to that has a JCM 900 and a 412, but that's the only one. Most of them, it's like expected that you bring. Although most of my sessions now are all in this room. I mean, now it sort of seems to be. Do you do that as well? Do you do your own remote sessions from home?
Yep. Done a bit of stuff, for people, yeah.
It's quite nice to work that way, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I've got to work out a way to mic up and be quieter. Like I'll get an isolation cab or something because I'm putting it in a closet with a mic, but or just going through some really good plugins and
Yeah, they've become quite good these days, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to, at least you're able to commit to a decent sound.
Yeah.
Rather than the old pod days, remember those?
I've still got a pod, just for rehearsing, but I do notice now that it doesn't sound as good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, man, one of the best guitar sounds I've ever heard was a pod, and we did that Mission Estate gig, and I was playing with Krista Berg, and I was supposed to play with Olivia Newton-John as well, but she bought her guitar player, and she bought Andy Timmons. And Andy turned up with the kidney bean pod.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you want to run through my Fender Twin? And he goes, no, I've got it all done. And he came out, and I remember the opening tune, he played this thing, and it just sounded massive.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay, like, I always thought those things were shit, but it really, you know.
The old ones.
I mean, he's got magic in his fingers, that guy, anyway, so.
I think there's some sounds that are quite good on them. I like the Mesa Boogie sound. I think that they don't call it that. I don't know what they call it, but that's quite a good sound. And there's others that just don't sound good.
Yeah,
that was
what's
the thing
crazy. Rob Harris used a kidney bean pod on some of those Jamiroquai hits, and with Kylie Minogue and some of those things. He was a pod too, and I've always thought I kind of want to buy one now and just see if I remember how. It's probably like terrible.
Probably about $20 now.
I saw one for $100 the other day, and I was like, even that feels too expensive.
Too much,
yeah. What I mean, people are. I see. You know, I've done some shows with a whole lot of English acts. Nick Kershaw. I wasn't playing with them, but the Mockers were playing before them at the Selwyn Sounds in Wellington and Auckland. But they're all using Kemper things now, which are great. Look like big heads. I've never plugged into one of those. Have you guys got any experience with those?
Yeah, my brother's got one, but I think that tech's a little bit old in the tooth these days. There's other things that, you know.
I mean,
it's funny. I got an email asking to hire my Fractal. I've got one of those Fractal FM9s and FM3s, and it was for Nick Kershaw's crew. Right. Would I hire it for the tour? And I was like, no. Like, the last thing I want to do, right? This is going to get someone stomping on your thing. It's getting carried. It's going to get broken. So.
Yeah, but those are small enough to fly with.
So they might have ended up. Sorry?
Those are small enough to fly with, you know. You don't really need to be hiring that.
That's what I thought was odd. And then I found out afterwards from British, who's a tech in town that was kind of involved with the backline, that it was they just wanted it as a backup.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, that might have been different if I'd known that, because they might not even use it at all and charge them a heap of money.
Yeah.
So they got this big thing. It looks like it's as big as a Marshall head, the Kemper, and then they got a 4x12 cab, so you're not saving on space, are you? Still a big thing. I guess it's quieter. Is that the thing?
Yeah, I mean, you can get that sound at, you know, any volume, but I find generally with modelers, it's always nice to have an actual guitar cab on stage.
Yeah.
Rather than just relying on wedge monitors.
I'm a little bit confused, but why would you have that on a really big outdoor gig where you can have an amp? That's the perfect time to have a reasonable amp.
Exactly.
And you don't want you don't need 100 different amps in different rooms. I just think you get a really
But it's consistency, that's the thing. Because I take my Fractal on a lot of fly gigs like that, and it's mostly because backline sucks, and I've had so many problems with backline. I've told Warren before, but I remember I did a gig with the APO, and they provided Fender Hot Rod DeVille, one of the 410 ones, and it was pulsing. It sounded like it had a tremolo, and there's no tremolo circuit in it. So they ran different power to it, and I just had to do the gig, and it sucked. It was awful.
So now I just take mine during the gig, or did you notice before? Or try and get it.
I noticed in sound check.
Changed?
So I did sound check without an amp and just went in direct so we could get through the rehearsal.
Right.
And then the sound guy started running. Peter Van Gent, you probably know him, started running different cables, and the amp was almost new. And then he ran different power cables, and then he thought he got it fixed. And then 2 minutes before we're about to start, I plug in and I play a chord, and I hear,
oh dear,
pulsing tremolo, and I'm like, oh fuck. So, but I've had that so many times where it's just unreliable backline that it's awful.
Yeah.
Although speaking of which, I remember borrowing an amp from my friend Simon Gottlieb, and it was like an old Pro or something like that, and he said, oh, I'm taking this to Brett Adams. So what did you think of that? Do you remember that amp?
Oh, is it the really, really old one?
Yeah, it's like a 56 or something
with
like
a great
that.
big,
An old,
like a 15-inch speaker or something.
Yeah.
I remember it, and I didn't get on with it.
I didn't like it at all. I wanted to like it,
so
but
did
I was
It's
like, no.
classic. And this was for I think it was the Come Together doing Dire Straits, and it was a lot of bottom end, and I think the thing was a lot of bottom end and top end, and I couldn't quite get what I wanted. I wanted more mids, and for the clean sort of stuff, I think that was my issue with it. It was a great looking amp, and it maybe sounded great in the right environment, doing the right thing, but I couldn't get on with it, and had to say I need something else.
I was the same, and I think part of it was it had a brand new speaker in it too, and it hadn't been. So I thrashed it when I was here, and I was like, sorry, just don't dig it. You know,
the
I
old
wanted
tweed
to like
one, isn't
it,
it?
but
Big tweed thing with a gigantic speaker. Yeah.
I don't like 15-inch speakers in guitar amps, though. Anyway, I've decided that. I've had a few of them now, and I always go away going,
Yeah, they're nice when you combine them with other speakers. You know, like 115 and a 2x10. That's a good sounding combination.
I'd like to try that new Jack White amp for that reason. It's got a 15 and a 10, and you can put tremolo to just one speaker and reverb to just the other, and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that sounds funky. That's something I'd be into.
Do you like the yellow on it though?
I don't know. It's not my taste at all.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I'll show you a picture.
So Warren,
Yep.
Warren, you've been busy too, man.
Yeah.
All over the place. What's been happening? Tell us.
I did 6 Black Star Blues gigs in India, and we did like 5 cities. The last gig was like a double, you do a 6 p.m. and a 9 p.m. But that was good fun. We got to, play a bunch of, original songs to people that knew them. And we did, I think, 5 clubs, and one was a big festival. But here's the funny thing. So the backline rider normally asks for 2 Mesa Boogie half stacks. And every single gig, there were like 2 boogies on stage. So the only time I got to turn them up were as that open air festival. But like the clubs, I remember there was like a point where you can just hear yourself over the drums, and the guitar sings with a little bit of feedback when you need it, and that felt good. I mean, like it kind of looks like overkill, 2 half stacks on stage, but like it's just a matter of dialing it in and get it to work. Thankfully, all the amps were in good condition, so I don't really have to spend too much time tracing down hums and buzzes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was a good gig. I mean, considering it's all instrumental guitar music, it was pretty well, attended. And now back here, I'm kind of like, maybe I should do a few more gigs here as well.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
How many people in the band?
There's 4 of us: drums, bass, guitars, keyboards, and the drummer and the keyboardist and myself were also in a Bollywood band that we would play with another artist as like part of his band. So we've been playing together for like almost 10 or more years now. Right. So everyone's very comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
So there's no real rehearsal. In fact, the first sound check becomes the rehearsal. Right. Okay. And like this time we added the Loner by Gary Moore onto the set list. So that was like, nice fun to play that song.
Yeah. But no singing. It's all
instrumental. No, nobody sings.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Once in a while we have a guest artist, if it's like a big festival and someone else is on the bill as well, then we, invite people to play with us. But other than that, no. It's kind of weird. Like I never expected it to actually gain any traction because it was just like a side project. Yeah. And then it just took on a life of its own. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
What have you been up to, Nick? I believe you had the New Year's off because
New Year's was cancelled because of the weather.
Yeah.
Apparently the orchestra people didn't want to get their violins and all the rest of it cold and so dumb. We were supposed to play the Waterfront in Wellington with Orchestra Wellington and a bunch of singers. There were 4 singers and a rhythm section, and so they cancelled it 11 o'clock in the morning for a 10 o'clock at night gig. They cancelled it. And there was a rock band was supposed to play before us, a 4-piece rock band. Mm-hmm. So they ended up doing our slot, which looks terrible. I said to the orchestra, this looks terrible. Like, they're going ahead, but it's not okay for you. So we ended up not playing. So I bought some beer and some steak, and I sat and watched Netflix and had a great night at home with the family. So we,
nice.
It was all good.
Yeah.
And then I had a gig 2 days before that for a friend, Deb Kelleher, who used to be the producer of Dancing with the Stars when I did that. She got sick and cancelled the gig. So I was like 2 gigs in a row cancelled. Yeah. But no, there's been stuff on. I did the Holiday. Have I seen you since I did the Holiday? The movie soundtrack with orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd put an orchestra together and we played the soundtrack with the screen behind us and all of that. So that was fun. Those things are always kind of a challenge, you know, to just nail it accurately. And of course you're on conductor, and there was a drum kit, but he was only playing on about 3 songs.
Right.
So most of it was very, very rubato at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the tempos were crazy slow.
Right.
Like 40 beats per minute and 60 beats per minute. And you're just like really playing a simple part, but you're like, and I missed it.
It's always
so
weird.
it's one of those, you know.
Playing with orchestras, I haven't done it that many times, but it feels like there's this massive tail that you're dragging behind you or something.
Yeah.
It's because everyone's slightly their timing is all slightly different. It's so spread out. It's a really weird feeling, especially when you're doing something like I once did a disco night with the I can't remember what orchestra it was. Auckland Philharmonic. I can't remember. Anyway, it was great, but it was very strange to be playing disco music with an orchestra and a orchestra drummer who doesn't really usually play funk or disco
That's
music.
the worst.
It was quite unusual. Just took me a lot of getting used to, the bass player and I. Yeah.
Yeah, though, when you get those orchestral guys who like insist that they can play drum kit because they can play timpani, and it's
just different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, and they speed up and slow down per bar following the conductor. Yeah. And you're like, no, keep it steady, like just groove, you know. But yeah, I've actually done lots of orchestra stuff, so I'm pretty comfortable with it now. But it's still a challenge every time. I like the challenge, but yeah.
Brett, you want to just run us through your board since you've got it set up here?
Just brought it just in case.
Yeah.
What have I got here? It always changes depending on. It's just quite a small board at the moment.
I noticed you've got an old 2-knob hotcake.
Yeah.
Which are quite rare these days.
I think Paul Crowther gave that to me
Cool.
way back in 1988. I've had it since then.
Is that so? It's the 2-knob one.
Yeah.
With the
2-knob with
switch or
a
without the
mid-lift
switch?
thing.
Yeah.
Which I was
cool.
using this with a Les Paul for the Led Zepp Come Together show. But first I use the thing called a Lightspeed, which a lot of people use. So there might be a bit much reverb on. And I usually then add the hotcake to that into it for especially when I haven't got I could put a Les Paul on, but so yeah, I have the Lightspeed on almost all the time.
And the drive set a bit low, is it?
I adjust that all the time too. I'm never happy. I adjust it with my toe as I play. Yeah, and sort of play with the volume a bit. Yeah, so that's my 2 distortions at the moment. I've got a lot of other stuff at home, but that was what I used for the Led Zepp show. But I've been mucking around at home. I've got a thing called a Shallow Water, which I really like, which is a modulation thing, but it's almost like a warp in a vinyl or something.
Right.
You can hear that?
Yeah.
It's like subtle, but I really like, especially with reverb.
That's nice. Did you have that one when you did that instrumental album as well?
I didn't have that then.
Oh yeah.
But what I did is to get a sort of, slightly wobbly. It's not chorus that I want. It's more like the whole thing.
The actual pitch
like
bearing,
what you do with the tremolo.
With the whammy bar, yeah.
So what I did was I used a CE2 like you've got over there.
Yeah.
With a Wazacraft one, but if you put a dummy lead, if you have it on the vibrato setting, and then you put a dummy lead over one of the outputs, you're just getting one waveform of sound basically.
Basically, you're taking out the dry sound.
Yeah, it's just wiggling, like it's not chorusing. If you adjust the speed with your foot, you get a quite cool random sort of. Because apparently, this Shallow Water is slightly random. I guess it's how hard you hit it.
Oh, so it's envelope following.
I mean, it goes all the way to quite C6.
Cool.
What else have we got here? I just got a tremolo. I have this all the time. And it never leaves the board, but just the Boss tremolo. Dark World by Chase Bliss, which also does some a sort of a warpy thing, but it's more like they call it like VHS tape that's been chewed up. So if you really want that sound, which I've yet to use, but
those pedals are crazy. They've got like a bunch of knobs and all those little dip switches.
Yeah. But I'm just using that as a reverb, really.
Right.
And a space echo.
Right.
Just got it on. We had it with the U2 sounds.
Right.
Yeah, and also using that for the Led Zeppelin all the time, sort of just a little bit.
Nice.
Actually, no, that's off. Sorry, it's really subtle what I was using.
Oh.
A little bit much reverb on there.
Yeah.
But that's all I've got on here at the moment, and a freeze pedal because I was mucking around at home with the, Yeah.
Nice.
A Japanese special order. I mean, made in America, but a special order black 56 because they were usually gold tops, and with a Bigsby in black plastic. And have you ever played any of that? What's that song? Was it Heartbreaker? Where it got the
Yeah.
except it comes right out sometimes.
Yeah.
I've put
That's why you've got the cable
tie on
That's
because
nice.
if you've ever done that bendy thing that he
Yeah.
does, like you can do it on a telly, but on the Les Paul it's harder. And so on my other Les Paul, I took the truss rod cover off.
Yeah.
And use the. I haven't done it with this one. It sort of comes out to get that.
Yeah.
Like I was yanking on it, and it worked. It worked because I just couldn't get enough press down momentum to get that note.
Yeah.
Do you know the bit I mean?
Yeah, totally. I've struggled with it as well.
That's something. Yeah.
I think Page used to use 8s, which is why it was a bit
Eights
easy.
that didn't work.
Yeah. What have you got on this guitar?
These will be 10s,
Tens.
or I've been recently on my Strats and Telly's using 9.5s.
Oh, okay.
Just to make it a little bit easier, just a little less tiring.
I keep telling Nick I'm going to go down a gauge. I'm going to go down a gauge.
Because in the heat of the moment, sometimes you just find yourself like, oh, this is just getting a little bit tiring on the hand.
And here's the funny thing, like you play like a while on those and then you do like a whole bunch of gigs and then you get like hand strength and then you start like, almost overbending and you're like, you got to go back up a gauge.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on 10s probably all my life, occasionally 11s, and I just felt 9s were a little
Well, that's a neat little idea with the
it
cable.
worked.
I like that.
This, for some reason, this bridge, I pulled it right out before, and that never happened during the gig, but you got to be careful. But having removing the truss rod cover does help, and you can push it a bit.
Right,
more
you get some more clearance.
Yeah.
Which has been like the most challenging cover song for you to like nail it exactly or something?
I got to say, learning the Beatles song "Within Without You,"
Yeah.
you know that song,
Yeah.
with all the strings. Man, there's some strange timing in that. That was we felt we got it sounding really good, but it was still a mystery. There's one bit where the strings do this line, and Joel was playing it on a sitar he had made by getting an acoustic guitar and putting a piece of wood under it. He looked up how to do it and had this really good sitar sound.
Right.
But there was a moment in there, like, the timing of a certain phrase that was like, have we ever got that? It was so unusual.
So you did the whole Sgt. Pepper's album, right?
Yeah. But doing Mark Knopfler stuff, like getting all his solos down, that was quite a lot to learn.
I saw a little video of you and Joel doing the Knopfler thing. I think it was a couple of years back.
Yeah, way back. That was the first one we did. Well, and 2 Dire Straits ones, yeah. But his solos are quite, and you got to do it without a pick too. Like, I had a pick tucked away some of the time for some rhythm parts, but yeah, there's some.
And like, how do you and Joel work out like splitting the parts and stuff? Do you each like say, I'll just
fight.
do that?
We just fight. No. He says I'm principal lead guitarist and he's principal rhythm guitarist and MD. No, we just share. If he says I really want to do that, Whole Lot of Love, I want to do that solo.
Right.
Sure, you can do it. I really want to do this one, and it just works out.
Right. Like where you switch or something like that.
And the Dire Straits one, got too much reverb in here. What's that song? It's Tunnel of Love.
Tunnel of Love, yeah.
We had a go at that each because he really wanted to do it, so. Yeah, we had a go at that each because we both, and did we? No, we didn't. There was a.
Yeah.
I think I did that one, and he did the middle one.
Oh yeah.
So, and there's that great one in the
Yeah.
That's a great one. And the end one of I think Joel did that one, and I did Telegraph Road. Yeah. It's great guitar parts. I love those.
And do you find like you have to adjust your vibrato a little bit to like get it to sound closer to?
Yeah, and not be too hard, and you've got to really watch how much, a tiny bit of gain, but it's easily to go.
Yeah, go over the top. Yeah.
Instantly, too much. Yeah. On a Strat though.
Yeah. It's cool because like reverse engineering guitar parts is like something like I do in my spare time, something like just wondering how to come close to that.
Yeah.
And then you like when the closer you go and you're like, oh, the speaker they use makes such a huge difference as well.
Yeah, I've never gone that far really. Like certain songs, especially Dire Straits, the guitar solos you've got to get them. You can't improvise one.
Yeah,
it's got to be that because people know it. They can hum it.
Yeah,
so
I think even if Knopfler changes it, people are going to be pissed off.
Yeah, exactly. And you can never do anything better than him. You say, "Oh, I'll do this." It's not going to sound better than Mark Knopfler.
Yeah.
And some of that with the Led Zepp stuff as well. Not saying it's. But Neil Young, there's some really long things, that you can do your
down
makeup,
and stuff like that.
Cortez and things like that.
And are there moments where you'll get to like stretch out and improvise at certain times, like that one, for example?
I got to do Cortez and Simone who promotes these shows. She was all for like long and indulge. So 8 minutes turned into like 10 minutes.
Wow.
And so
that's nice.
And the people are there to see that and they want.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all their favorite songs that they grew up
I think we did a song called Danger Bird, and that got up to 13 minutes, I think.
Okay.
That's very indulgent.
Awesome. Anyway, it's been lovely talking to you,
Yeah.
Brett. Lovely having you here. And Nick, we will see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. We'll see you guys soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.